The front door of the mansion slammed open, and Alexander Westbrook froze in place as soon as his eyes landed on the scene before him. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was kneeling on the cold, marble floor of the grand entryway. Her small hands were raw, bleeding from scrubbing at a stubborn stain that refused to come out. Her little face, normally full of life, was pale with exhaustion. She looked up at him, eyes wide with fear and pain, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, Mom. I can't do this anymore." The words cut through the stillness of the room like a knife, and Alexander's heart sank. He opened his mouth to say something, but no sound came out. His feet were frozen to the floor, his mind racing. How had this happened? How had he let it come to this? Before we dive into this story, let us know in the comment section where you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Lily knelt on the cold, marble floor of the mansion's entryway, her small hands raw and bleeding as she scrubbed at a stubborn stain that wouldn't come out. The harsh scent of bleach and the smell of the expensive, polished marble floor filled the air, making her head spin. Her tiny fingers ached, her body sore from hours of forced labor. Her dress, once bright pink, now hung from her thin frame in tatters, soaked through with water and bleach. She had long since given up on trying to wipe away the exhaustion that clung to her skin, the bruises forming on her arms where Veronica's grip had been too tight. Veronica's voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "Not fast enough, Lily," she sneered, her tone laced with disgust. "You call that cleaning? It's pathetic. If you don't hurry up, I'll make you do it again." Lily didn't look up. She couldn't. Every time she did, she saw the cold, calculating look in Veronica's eyes. It made her insides twist with fear. Veronica had been the only one to take care of her since Sarah, Lily's mother, had passed away 2 years ago. But even when Alexander, her father, was around, there was always a chill in the air when Veronica spoke. Always a sharp edge to her words, always a feeling of coldness that Lily couldn't quite put her finger on. But she knew it made her feel small, insignificant. She swallowed hard, trying to control the sob that threatened to break free. Her eyes blurred, but she blinked away the tears. She couldn't cry. She had learned that much after all this time. Crying only made things worse. Veronica would find some new way to punish her if she cried, something worse than scrubbing floors for hours on end. The mansion's silence pressed down on her like a heavy weight. The luxurious grandeur of the place, the tall marble columns, the gilded frames of the paintings on the walls, felt so distant from her world now. Lily had once felt safe here when her mother had been alive. But now, everything felt like a cage. Every time she tried to escape into her memories, her mother's warmth seemed to fade further away, replaced by the cold presence of Veronica. Veronica paced around her, eyes narrowed as she watched Lily's every move. "You should be grateful that I'm teaching you something," Veronica muttered, her heels clicking loudly with each step. "Your mother would have let you grow up spoiled and useless. It's good for you to learn hard work. It builds character." Character. Lily scoffed to herself, but she didn't dare speak. She knew better than to speak out. Veronica's teaching wasn't about building anything but control. It wasn't about discipline. It was about breaking Lily's spirit, piece by piece. That was the only lesson Veronica seemed to care about. Veronica stopped in front of her, looming over her like a shadow. "What's the matter, huh?" she asked, her voice sweet like honey. But Lily could hear the venom beneath it. "Tired already? Maybe if you didn't act so lazy, you wouldn't have to do all this. You're lucky I'm even letting you stay here. Remember that." Lily's shoulders hunched at the words, the sting of Veronica's cruelty sinking deeper than any physical pain could. She couldn't answer. She didn't dare. Her throat tightened, and the words caught in her chest. Her fingers ached with the effort of scrubbing, but she didn't stop. She knew that if she did, the punishment would be worse. Hours seemed to pass as she worked in silence. The sun began to set outside, casting long shadows across the cold marble floor. Veronica hadn't left her side, hovering over her like a hawk, watching every movement. Every time Lily slowed down, Veronica's voice would cut through the air, sharp and demanding. "Hurry up, or you'll regret it." By the time the front door clicked open, Lily had lost all sense of time. The floor was still only half clean, the stubborn stains still mocking her. But she couldn't bear to scrub anymore. She just couldn't. Veronica's heels echoed on the floor as she turned to face the door. "Your father's home," she said coldly, almost as if it were an afterthought. "And he'll know just how lazy you've been, won't he?" Lily didn't even look up. She knew it wouldn't matter if she tried to explain. Her father was always too busy, too distant to see. He was always working, always out of the house. And when he was home, he wasn't really home. He was just another presence, silent and cold. The grief of losing her mother had consumed him, and Lily had been left alone, trying to navigate the rules of this cruel new world without anyone to turn to. Alexander Westbrook, her father, was a man of wealth, power, and success. A successful tech entrepreneur with a mind for business. He spent most of his days wrapped up in meetings and deals. He had never been the nurturing type. He loved Lily, of course. But his grief and guilt over Sarah's death had created a distance between them. He had become so focused on his work, on moving past his loss, that he hadn't seen how far Veronica's cruelty had gone. He hadn't seen how his daughter was suffering. Lily heard Veronica's voice speaking again, this time in a soft, practiced tone. "Alexander, darling, I've been teaching Lily a lesson in responsibility," she said, her words smooth, sweet. "She's been so careless lately. I'm just making sure she learns to value what she has." Lily felt her stomach twist at the sound of her father's name. She knew what was coming. Veronica would paint herself as the perfect stepmother, the caring woman who was only trying to teach Lily some discipline. And her father would buy it. He always did. But she was tired. So tired of pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. She just wanted to be held, to feel safe again, to feel like her father cared. But those feelings seemed so far away now, like a distant memory that slipped through her fingers every time she tried to reach for it. And then, just like that, he was standing in the doorway. Alexander Westbrook. His tall frame filled the entrance, and for a moment, everything froze. The sound of his shoes clicking on the floor, his confident presence. Lily's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't look up. She couldn't. She heard Veronica speak first, her voice sweet and light. "Darling, you're home early." There was that false sweetness again, the same tone she used when she was manipulating him. "Lily's been helping me out. She spilled some water and I'm just teaching her how to be more responsible." Lily didn't move, didn't make a sound. She could feel her father's presence behind her, could feel the weight of his gaze. But she kept her head down. She couldn't face him. She couldn't face what she knew was coming, the disappointment, the anger. He would side with Veronica. He always did. For a moment, everything was silent, the tension thick in the air. And then, a small voice broke through the silence. "Dad," Lily whispered, barely audible, her voice shaking. Please, I can't do it anymore." The words hung in the air like a bomb, exploding in Alexander's chest. He felt his body freeze. His eyes locked on Lily, and for the first time, he saw her. Really saw her. Her hands were raw and bleeding, her body trembling, and her eyes, those eyes that once sparkled with life, were filled with fear and exhaustion. Alexander felt the weight of his daughter's plea crash into him like a tidal wave. His breath caught in his throat, and his chest tightened as he stood there, frozen in place. His eyes remained locked on Lily, her trembling body a stark contrast to the cold, pristine elegance of the house around her. She had always been the light of his life, and now, seeing her in such pain, guilt coursed through him like a poison. "Lily," he whispered, stepping toward her. But his feet felt as though they were anchored to the floor. He reached out, his hand trembling as he moved closer. Her head remained down, and for a moment he feared she might not even acknowledge him. But then, she slowly lifted her eyes to meet his, and what he saw nearly shattered him. Her face was streaked with tears, her small body shaking as she tried to hold herself together. But there was no hiding the fear and exhaustion that filled her once vibrant eyes. For a brief moment, Alexander saw his wife, Sarah, in Lily's face, her eyes wide with innocence, her heart open to the world. But now, all that was left in those eyes was something much darker, the deep scars left by neglect, fear, and abandonment. "Lily," Alexander repeated, his voice strained with emotion. "Please, let me help you." But Lily didn't respond. She just lowered her eyes again, her hands clutching the rag tightly, as though it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Veronica, seeing the shift in the atmosphere, quickly moved forward, her heels clicking with false urgency. Her practiced smile returned, but this time it was edged with something cold, something Alexander couldn't ignore. "Darling, I told you she's just being a child. A little discipline never hurt anyone." Veronica's voice dripped with sweetness, but Alexander could hear the edge behind it now. "Lily's been a bit careless lately. I'm only teaching her how to be responsible." Her words didn't even reach Alexander's ears. All he could hear was the deafening silence between them, the weight of the truth settling in like a heavy fog. For years, he had let his grief isolate him. But now, he couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Veronica's discipline was nothing more than cruelty. His daughter was breaking, and he had been too blind to see it. "I don't care what you think, Veronica," he finally said, his voice quiet but firm, his anger beginning to stir. "This isn't discipline, this is abuse." Veronica froze for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly as her smile faltered. She was always so in control, so composed. But now, the cracks were beginning to show. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You can't be serious, Alexander. She's just a child. Children need to learn responsibility." Alexander took another step forward, his eyes never leaving Lily. He could see the way her small hands trembled, the way she flinched every time Veronica got too close. He could see the fear in her eyes, the fear that had been there for too long. "No," he said, his voice growing stronger. "This isn't about responsibility. This is about control. You've been hurting her, Veronica." For a moment, Veronica's smile completely disappeared, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "You think you can just come in here and accuse me of something like that?" she hissed, taking a step toward him. "This is my house, Alexander. I will do what I think is best for the child, and you will stay out of it." Her words hit him like a slap, but Alexander didn't back down. "You're wrong, Veronica. This ends now." Lily's small voice broke through the tension, her voice weak but desperate. "Dad, please, don't let her hurt me anymore." The words pierced Alexander's heart. He felt as though he had been struck by lightning, the force of his daughter's plea leaving him breathless. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but the anger inside him wasn't just directed at Veronica. It was directed at himself, too. How could he have let it get this far? He reached out for Lily, his hand trembling as he gently placed it on her shoulder. She flinched at the contact, but then, slowly, she turned toward him. Her small arms wrapped around his waist as if she were clinging to the only lifeline she had left. "I'm sorry, Lily," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I should have been here. I should have seen what was happening." Veronica stood behind him, her face twisted in anger, her eyes burning with contempt. "You're making a mistake, Alexander. You're choosing her over me. I've been nothing but patient, but this is what I get?" "I'm choosing my daughter," Alexander said, his voice steady now, filled with conviction. He pulled Lily closer, her head resting against his chest. "I should have done this sooner. I should have been here for you, Lily." Veronica's face turned a deep shade of red as she took a step back, clearly outraged. "You'll regret this," she spat, her voice laced with venom. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Alexander's heart raced, but his grip on Lily tightened. "I'm not afraid of you, Veronica," he said, his words sharp, "and I won't let you hurt her anymore." The tension in the room was suffocating. Veronica's face twisted with fury, but Alexander's resolve only grew stronger. The truth had come to light, and there was no going back now. Lily, still trembling in his arms, looked up at him with eyes full of silent pleading. Alexander's chest tightened, his heart breaking for her. She had been through so much, and yet she still looked to him for protection. He couldn't fail her again. Not now. Not ever. "Don't worry, Lily," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I'll make sure you're safe. No one will ever hurt you again. I promise." But even as he spoke those words, the weight of the reality they faced settled heavily in his chest. Veronica wasn't just going to walk away. There was a battle ahead, one that would require everything Alexander had: his strength, his resolve, and his love for his daughter. And he would fight with everything he had. Veronica stood silently, her fists clenched at her sides as her eyes bore into Alexander. Her lips curled into a twisted sneer as she looked at him, her voice dripping with contempt. "You really think you can just waltz in here and play the hero, Alexander? You've been absent for so long, you don't even know who she's become. You don't even know what you're saving her from." Alexander's breath quickened, but his resolve held steady. He glanced down at Lily, who was still clinging to him, her small frame shaking with fear and exhaustion. His heart broke for her, and for the first time in a long while, he truly saw her. The distance he had placed between himself and his daughter, the distance he had allowed to grow, suddenly seemed so painfully clear. Veronica had been manipulating him all along. He had let his grief and his guilt over Sarah's death blind him to what was happening right under his nose. He hadn't seen the pain his daughter was enduring, hadn't recognized the toll it was taking on her. But he would see it now. He would protect her. "I know exactly what I'm doing," Alexander replied, his voice cold with fury. "And I'm not letting you get away with this anymore." Veronica's expression darkened as her gaze flicked to Lily, still trembling in her father's arms. "You think you're protecting her, but you're just coddling her, spoiling her. She'll never learn how to survive in this world if you let her get away with everything." Lily flinched at Veronica's words, her tiny body shrinking even further into her father's chest. She was so small, so fragile, and the weight of her fear seemed to crush the air around them. Alexander felt a sharp pang in his chest as he hugged her tighter. This wasn't just about discipline, it was about control. Veronica's control over him, over their family, and now, over Lily's spirit. Lily deserves love, Alexander said firmly, his voice steady despite the anger that burned in his chest. She deserves to feel safe, not be subjected to your cruelty. You've hurt her for too long, Veronica. For a moment, Veronica's smile faltered, her eyes flickering with something between rage and disbelief. But she quickly regained her composure. You think you can just come in here and change everything? You don't know what you're dealing with, Alexander. This is my house, and you are my husband. She's my responsibility now. Her words hung in the air like a threat, but Alexander didn't flinch. His gaze never left her as he spoke again, his voice low but filled with purpose. No, she's my responsibility, and I failed her. I failed both of you. Veronica's eyes widened for just a fraction of a second, but then she threw her head back, laughing bitterly. Failed her? You're the one who's failed, Alexander. You're the one who's been absent. You're the one who let all this happen. She took a step closer to him, her voice dropping into a dangerous whisper. You don't even know what she's capable of, do you? She's been a problem since the day Sarah died. She's been nothing but a burden to you. You don't want to face the truth, but I will make you see it. She'll never be the sweet little girl you remember. She's broken. Lily's small form trembled harder, but this time, Alexander didn't let go. He pulled her closer, his arms wrapped tightly around her, trying to shield her from the venomous words Veronica was throwing at them. I don't care what you say, Alexander said quietly, his voice filled with a mixture of fury and regret. I'm done letting you control this family. I'm done letting you break my daughter. Veronica took another step forward, but this time, Alexander moved to block her path. His body was tense, every muscle coiled in anger, and for the first time in what felt like years, he was ready to stand his ground. I'll make sure she's safe. I'll make sure she gets the love she deserves, he said, his words a vow to himself, to Lily, to the woman who had once been his wife. I'm done letting you manipulate me. I see what you're doing now, and it stops here. Lily looked up at her father, her wide eyes filled with both hope and fear. She had been waiting for this moment. She had been waiting for him to finally see the truth. She didn't speak, but in the silence, her small hand gripped his tightly, her fingers cold with fear, but also a spark of hope. Veronica's expression twisted with rage. You think you can take her from me? You think I'll just let you ruin everything I've worked for? I'm not taking her from you, Alexander said, his voice hard. I'm saving her from you. The words hit Veronica like a slap. Her entire demeanor shifted, her confidence faltering for the briefest of moments. But she quickly recovered, her eyes narrowing with cold malice. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, Alexander, she said, her voice sharp. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Then it's a good thing I'm ready for the fight, Alexander replied, his eyes never leaving hers. With that, Veronica turned on her heel, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor as she stormed out of the room, her anger palpable in every step. The room fell into a thick, suffocating silence. Alexander's heart was pounding in his chest as he held Lily in his arms. The weight of the moment settled heavily around them. But there was something different now. Something that had shifted between father and daughter. The distance between them, built by months of grief and isolation, began to close. "I'm sorry, Lily," Alexander whispered, his voice cracking with the guilt that still haunted him. "I should have been here for you. I should have seen what was happening." Lily didn't say anything. She just rested her head against his chest, her small body still trembling with fear and exhaustion. But there was something in her gaze now, something that hadn't been there before. A flicker of hope, no matter how small. A flicker that told Alexander that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to fix things. "I'm here now," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I won't let anyone hurt you again. Not ever." Lily clung to him, the weight of her fears beginning to lift just a little. In that moment, with her father's arms around her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. As the door slammed shut behind Veronica, the air in the room felt less oppressive. But the silence still weighed heavily on Alexander's shoulders. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. But he refused to let it consume him. This was it. The moment he had been too afraid to face. He had let everything go unchecked for so long. But now, his daughter needed him, and he wasn't going to fail her again. Lily's small hands gripped his shirt tightly, her tiny body trembling in his arms. He held her close, his own breath shaky as he tried to keep his composure. But the guilt was like a storm inside him. He had been absent, focused only on his work and the pain of losing Sarah. He hadn't seen what was happening under his nose, and now the weight of that failure was crushing him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Lily." Lily didn't respond. She didn't have to. She was silent, but Alexander could feel the slight shift in her as her body relaxed against his. She didn't pull away, didn't flinch. She just stayed there, nestled against him, the only comfort she had left. After what felt like an eternity, Lily finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "Dad, I'm scared." Her words broke him. He hadn't realized until now just how much fear had been eating away at her. She had been living in a constant state of fear, never knowing when Veronica would lash out again, never knowing if she would ever be truly safe. "I know, sweetheart," he murmured, his hand gently rubbing her back. "But I'm here now, and I won't let her hurt you again, I promise." But even as he spoke those words, Alexander knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Veronica wouldn't just back off. She wouldn't let go of her control so easily. She was manipulative, cold, and calculating. But Alexander was ready. He had to be. He couldn't let his daughter suffer any longer. Lily pulled back just enough to look up at him, her tear-streaked face still fragile, but filled with a glimmer of hope. Do you think things can be normal again?" For a brief moment, Alexander didn't know how to answer. Could things ever go back to normal? Could they ever be the family they used to be? The thought of a future without Veronica's shadow looming over them felt impossible. But he had to believe it was possible. He had to believe that they could find a way forward, together. "We'll make it normal again," he said quietly, his voice full of determination. "It won't happen overnight. But we'll rebuild, Lily. We'll rebuild our life, and we'll be okay. I'll make sure of it." Lily nodded slowly, her small hand wiping away the last of her tears. "I trust you, Dad." Her words were a balm to his broken heart. She trusted him, and that trust was something he would never take for granted again. He had a lot of work to do to earn it back, but he would. For her. With a deep breath, Alexander stood up, his daughter still in his arms. The house around them felt different now, empty, cold, and foreign. He had to do something. He had to fix this, not just for Lily, but for himself too. He couldn't keep living like he had been, detached, numb, and lost in the past. He had to be present for her. He had to protect her. "Let's go upstairs," he said, his voice steadier now. "You need rest. We'll talk more tomorrow, okay?" Lily nodded again, her eyes still filled with uncertainty. But something else too. Something that had been missing for so long. Hope. As they made their way up the grand staircase, Alexander's mind raced with the decisions he would have to make in the coming days. Veronica was still in the house. She was still his wife, and she wouldn't just give up her hold on their lives. He needed a plan, a real plan, one that would protect Lily, and one that would give him back the father he had failed to be for so long. But tonight, all he could do was hold her, reassure her that she was safe, and promise that he would never let her go through this again. The night was quiet, too quiet. The mansion felt more like a tomb than a home, its once grand halls now empty of life and warmth. Veronica was somewhere in the house, likely stewing in her anger. But for the first time in a long time, Alexander didn't feel the weight of her presence. The house, once oppressive with its lavish decor and hidden cruelty, felt different now. It felt like a space where maybe things could be rebuilt. In the privacy of his study, Alexander sat at his desk, his hands clasped in front of him. His mind was still reeling from the confrontation with Veronica, but he knew there was no going back. He had to act. He had to make sure Veronica wouldn't harm Lily again. The legal system would take time, but he needed something immediate. He needed answers. Picking up his phone, Alexander dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Jacob Reynolds, an old friend from college who had become a trusted lawyer. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Jacob, I need your help. It's about Veronica." Jacob's voice was calm but steady on the other end. "What's going on?" "I'll explain later. But I need a legal team, and I need something to protect Lily. I can't let this go on." Jacob's tone shifted to something more serious. "I'll get on it immediately, Alexander. You'll have what you need, but you're going to need to act fast. This could get ugly." "I know," Alexander said, his voice firm. "But I won't let her hurt Lily anymore. I'll do whatever it takes." After hanging up, Alexander sat back in his chair, his fingers drumming against the desk. He felt a sense of determination rising within him, something he hadn't felt in years. He couldn't change the past. He couldn't undo the mistakes he had made. But he could change their future. He could protect his daughter. And for the first time in a long time, Alexander Westbrook felt like he was finally taking control of his life again. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the mansion, casting long golden beams through the windows and filling the empty rooms with a soft, warm light. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the house felt a little less cold, a little less empty. Alexander stood by the window in his study, staring out at the vast, manicured grounds, lost in thought. His mind was racing with plans, with decisions that would change everything. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the fight ahead. He was ready. Lily had woken up earlier than usual, her small face still pale from the exhaustion of the past few days. But her eyes were clearer now. She had curled up next to him on the couch after breakfast, her little hand tucked tightly in his as they sat in silence. There was still so much healing to do, but the worst of it had been said. The worst of it had been acknowledged. And for the first time in a long while, Alexander felt something stir in him that he hadn't felt in years. Hope. But the hope wasn't just for himself. It was for Lily, and he was willing to fight for it. After a tense breakfast, where Lily ate quietly, her eyes occasionally flickering up at him, Alexander made his way to the study. He picked up his phone again, dialing Jacob's number, his hand steady as he waited for the line to connect. "Jacob, it's Alexander. I need to move forward today. What can we do to get started?" Jacob's voice was calm but urgent. "I've already spoken to a few people. We'll need to meet with a family lawyer and start gathering evidence. It'll take time, but we'll be able to get a restraining order in place. We'll also need to figure out how to protect Lily in the long run." "Good," Alexander said, his jaw tight. "And what about Veronica? What's the best way to deal with her?" Jacob paused, then replied, "It's complicated. But we'll make sure she's kept away from Lily for now. You're not going to have to worry about that." Alexander nodded, grateful for his old friend's support. But there was still a weight on his shoulders, a feeling that the battle was just beginning. And what about Veronica's assets? Her connections? How far do we need to go to make sure she doesn't get away with this? "We'll take it step by step," Jacob assured him. "But this isn't just about Veronica anymore, Alexander. It's about Lily's future, and you've already taken the hardest step. You've broken the silence, and that's where it all starts." That afternoon, Alexander took Lily out for a walk in the garden. The cool air felt refreshing against his skin, and the trees, lush and green, seemed to welcome them as they strolled down the winding path. For the first time in what felt like forever, they were able to enjoy each other's company in peace. No Veronica, no tension, just father and daughter. Lily held his hand tightly, her grip strong, as if afraid he might slip away again. She didn't speak much, but her small smile was enough to melt Alexander's heart. He was determined to make sure she never felt alone again, to make sure that she would always know she was loved, cherished, and protected. "Dad," Lily said softly, breaking the silence, Do you think things can be normal again, like they used to be?" Alexander stopped walking and knelt down in front of her, his heart aching at the vulnerability in her voice. He cupped her face in his hands, brushing away the last traces of tears that lingered on her cheeks. "We'll make it normal again," he said, his voice steady. "It'll take time, but I'll always be here for you. No one will hurt you again, Lily. I promise." She looked up at him, her wide, innocent eyes filled with hope. "I believe you, Dad." And in that moment, Alexander knew that he would do whatever it took to make sure she had a future free from fear, free from the chains that Veronica had placed around them both. Days passed, and the legal process began. Jacob worked tirelessly to gather evidence and build a case against Veronica. He spoke to neighbors, to employees, and to anyone who might have witnessed the cruelty that had been taking place behind the closed doors of their mansion. Every conversation, every piece of evidence, was a step closer to protecting Lily. And as the days went on, Alexander began to feel a growing sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, they would make it out of this. Together. Veronica, for her part, had become more and more agitated as she realized that her control was slipping away. The tension in the house was palpable, and Lily could feel it too. but she didn't seem as scared as she had been before. She seemed stronger now, more at ease. The weight of Veronica's presence was slowly lifting, and Lily was learning to trust her father again. And then came the day that would mark the beginning of a new chapter for them both. Alexander had just finished a long meeting with his lawyer when he received a call from Jacob. His heart pounded in his chest as he answered the phone. "It's done," Jacob said. "The restraining order is in place. Veronica is officially removed from the household. You and Lily are safe." The words hit Alexander like a wave of relief, washing away the last of his fear. He felt his shoulders relax for the first time in what felt like forever. Lily was safe. His daughter was safe. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." "I told you we'd get through this," Jacob said. "Now it's time for you and Lily to start healing. Take it slow, but don't let anyone stand in your way." A year passed. It was a quiet evening when Alexander and Lily sat together in their living room. Lily was playing the piano, the soft, delicate notes filling the space between them. Alexander sat across from her, watching as she played with a concentration that reminded him of Sarah. As the last note echoed through the room, Lily turned to him, her eyes shining with pride. "Dad, I'm finally ready. I want to play at the recital." Alexander smiled, his heart swelling with love for his daughter. "You've worked so hard, Lily. You're going to be amazing." And for the first time in a long time, he believed it. The night of the recital arrived, and Alexander sat in the front row, his heart in his throat. The auditorium was filled with parents, friends, and teachers. But all Alexander could see was Lily, standing nervously on the stage. She looked out at him, her eyes wide with anticipation. And then, as if she could feel the strength of his gaze, she smiled. When she began to play, the music was pure and clear, each note resonating in the air like a promise that she had made it through. And in that moment, as her music filled the room, Alexander knew that they had both made it through. They had survived, and they were stronger for it. The applause filled the air, but all Alexander could hear was the sound of his daughter's music, the sound of hope, of healing, and of a future that was finally theirs to shape. And here brings us to the end of the story. If you believe that no child should ever suffer in silence, share this story to help spread hope and healing. If this tale touched your heart, please leave a comment below telling us what moment resonated with you most. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring more uplifting stories to those who need them. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.